presentation and it came up in an earlier roundtable, but the world is no longer flat. So you need to decide in terms of what are some of the investments and where they need to go. Now, the thing is, this can't be stood up overnight. I mean, it's impossible. I mean, some of these are years in the making, but I think there is a big focus in terms of building sovereignty for areas that would make sense and matter, right? I think the point about picking your battles and where you want to actually start to build. But I think there's a piece here which I think is an area, which is an advantage for India, which I want to just kind of touch upon the previous question that you had as well. Maybe there's relationships here. Again, one of the data points you mentioned was the process debt. One of the biggest issues that you have to overcome, if you think about agentic AI, the agents need a brain to operate on, which is the context graph underneath. One of the things that Indian GCCs or the Indian ecosystem, perhaps in the IT services ecosystem, has built over the years, perhaps, we are not very good at recognizing it, is that context graph. The process knowledge of most of the enterprises are actually locked up in a lot of these organizations. Is there a way to unlock that becomes a different approach than just saying, do I just worry about building blocks? Yes, there is definitely a discussion in terms of, what pieces of sovereignty that you need to actually build. But what is the other advantage that you have as an ecosystem? And I think the point about, is there a way to capture that context graph in a way in which you can reimagine the outcomes, which will then drive the next wave of processes that agentic AI can operate on? I think that is an advantage that we are underestimating in terms of what's available in this ecosystem, which can be unlocked for the world in a lot of new ways. And I think that should be an additional approach, an additional thing to what we're talking about here in terms of sovereign, components.
Thank you, Ramkumar. So maybe Lalitha, you work in such a global manufacturing automotive business, Jaguar Land Rover. So how do you view the role of India within your organization and where you think it's going to shift with all the AI activity happening?
I think irrespective of the domain, what we're operating in India is being central to most of the organization's, identity. It is historically, I think, if you look at the evolution, be it the service providers, be it the outsourcing, or even the software companies developing the softwares out of India created a huge, both in terms of the service mindset, but as well as the strong domain capabilities and transformational mindset. A combination of this is what is making India uniquely placed, be it a GCC ecosystem or the service provider ecosystem. So whatever it is, I think, and the scale and the depth, and as much as we say cost is no longer the reason, still having the cost advantage doesn't hurt, especially in today's very volatile situation in terms of the tariffs and all of that. I think a combination of all of this still make India a very sweet spot for any organization.
Yeah, and particularly in a lot of UK and US organizations, and most of the senior tech leaders are Indian or Indian immigrants as well, which I think does a tremendous job for the perception of India, particularly as a software developer.
But also, if you look at the whole trade deals that is getting signed, be it UK-India trade deal or India-EU trade deal, we're calling it, I think, in India, the Marino Foil trade deals, right? I think a lot of these things are very strongly giving predictable roadmap for organization. Look at the budget announcements, very favorable for GCCs, giving some amount of predictability and stability. That's just adding to the already a strong ecosystem.
Right, very interesting. Doshi, let's try to talk a bit more. What's your view? You've got so China's trying to be capacity at scale. The US is trying to be closed models at scale. Is India towns at scale?
And can I pick a question without recommendation?
And you've got China trying to be capacity at scale. The US is trying to be the frontier models and chips at scale. Is India the talent at scale?
I think that it's a very interesting question in terms of, and some of the answers came from this, that where do you really position yourself?
Yeah.
And to me, I think the AI is about four eyes. One is the intelligence, second is the infrastructure, third is the influence, and fourth is innovation. So just looking at infrastructure as one element of it, and I kind of put the entire stack from the LLMs to the infrastructure from a data center perspective to the power and all of that. When you start looking at it, it's the four eyes that you balance to create a flywheel is important. And I think that's where, given the kind of intelligence and the talent that you have, a younger workforce, one of the challenges that AI adoption has is, a shift in the behavior from being a creator to an orchestrator and a producer. And some of these shifts are easily said than done in the world of AI. And that's why I think, given the demographic profile of India, I'm like, I think there is a prediction that there'll be 6, 8, 10 LLMs in the world that eventually will remain. 2 or 3 maybe from China, 1 from Europe, 1 from Asia, and then US. So I think right now, the big thing that you showed as well is, where do you apply AI? As Lalit said, there is a solution that's searching a problem. And I think India is best known for solving a problem. And there is a problem, as you rightly said, 37% of the value is to be unlocking the processes. And some of that unlock is also because of people. So while you put people below there, people have a role to play in the process debt and the data debt. So I think when you bring this four together, I don't probably believe in this whole debate of those who control the infrastructure will control the AI play. I think those who balance this four, market economics will play out. And who knows, right? It's probably crystal ball gazing as well. But I think, to me, it is really the need is, how do you deploy AI at scale? How do you turn the super oil tanker and start using AI at scale for, as you said, 13% doing vibe coding? How do you go up there? And that's a challenge.
Yeah.
And there are challenges in the next horizon about the whole L&D and the skill atrophy that we are seeing already. Yesterday, I was reading an article where open source community, which is a contributor to the whole coding models, will probably start to suffer because a lot of code that was contributed to open source might not come. And that means the future of code is also kind of, you to see how does that evolve with open source. I think there are quite a few problems is solved, and the key is in execution of these four eyes.
But good stuff. So let's shift gears a little bit. Doshi, let's talk about the IT services firms right now. And there's this big shift conversation, moving from effort-based, outcome-led AI and delivery. What's the single hardest shift that Indian IT services firms have to make to do this at scale? Is it culture? Is it incentives? Is it talent? So what you've had a lifetime in this space. What do you think the big challenges?
Thank you, Phil. I think, if I just take a step back and look at the IT services, we all experienced the pandemic 3-4 years back. And, one thing which happened in the pandemic, and many of you will realize, is we used to talk about digital law. We used to say everybody's going digital. But probably the pandemic accelerated the clients to truly become digital, whether it's direct consumer, it's own channel. And the reason I'm saying that is the AI is also being transformational in that way. And so to your point, I have a feeling that this is a great opportunity for services firms to truly become outcome-based, because they've been talking about business avatars for a long, long time. We have done in many areas, but I don't think it is kind of industrialized. But there is a great opportunity for us to think of business outcomes as we go along. You talk about technical debt. That's another key issue where the IT services firms can actually do a great job in terms of leveraging agentic, leveraging AI to get rid of technical debt. So overall, I feel that there's a great opportunity in terms of moving towards outcome, which has to be AI enabled, and where I am in the pool, I have seen that there are inside where we are purely focused on outcomes, which is the right thing to do. And also you talk about the various roles, the chief AI officer, etc. But I think one role which probably I see in my last 6-7 months interacting with a lot of organizations is the CHRO role. And why I say that is when you talk about challenges that we will go through. First of all, I firmly believe that India will figure it out. India may not be leading in every area, but they're very fast followers. We will figure it out in terms of what we do. But the transformation that is required in terms of talents, whether the talent is coming from engineering colleges or how you change how you transform the talent, within your organization, and that really be hard. And that too, it has to happen at a very fast pace. So today, I think many organizations are really dealing with that situation. And I think the CHR rules are becoming very challenging because for them, and we transform the talent and that to talent transformation at scale in order to adapt at the AI at scale is going to be the biggest challenge in my view as we go along.
Yeah.
So I think I agree with what you said. I just want to add a little bit here context. AI is a great amplifier. You give bad, shit comes out. You give good, very good operating comes out. I think not just for the Indian IT service, I will say, but for all the service providers, there's a need to probably rethink the model. The whole operating model is where is the requirement to deliver an outcome. And they do a brilliant job of translating requirements into an outcome. Over many years, they've developed very deep domain expertise, not just within the company that they work for, but across the ecosystem or the sector. They will genuinely have to rethink the whole engagement model and the global delivery model that starts with the requirement. It starts with what is the talent that is needed on the table? How do we work and collaborate and co-create together? And of course, outcome is important, but I think the ownership of outcome discussion will also shift from is it a joint ownership or is it an ownership where you deliver outcome or you give an assurance of an outcome? So I think the whole model needs a rethink. Is in my view, it's not tinkering around the edges. It's the talent that they bring in. It's the kind of skills mix. The pyramid of the organization that they have been building, because as I said, AI is a great amplifier. Typically, it's a blended mix of resource and the skills that they bring in with various different levels of expertise. The size of and I'm talking about AI development as software development, size of the pods are smaller. Even if one of the weakest link, will amplify multi-fold, in my view. And I think that's a big challenge. I think there's a rethink, absolutely, not immediately, but in the next 3 to 5 years, these weaker links will start becoming an amplifier of my.
And it's faith, yeah. I'm going to give a chance to Puneet. I read that, I like the comments around this is a massive impact for the CHRO. Now, 10 years ago, the US businesses were in awe of Indian HR because the Indians figured out, you guys figured out how to just train a scale, move, shift, they always have to be first mover. How do you see this in your own world? Is the CHRO in a sort of thankless situation, or do you think this is a fantastic opportunity for them?
Thank you for that question, sir. And with respect to the second point, I also wanted to add my points here that respectfully, yes, India is the single hardest internal shift, what we really need to say. How many of us are knowing about the sovereign cloud? I did mention that yesterday also. The sovereign cloud, which has been built in India, And since we are part of the India Architecture Group, so we know how basically, the sovereign cloud has got made with the deployment of the largest infrastructure globally, what we have today, in terms of the shifting of GPUs, catering for 140 billion population, talking about 995 radio stations on Wi-Fi enablement, and like almost 1,025 plus payload paths across the highways. I think so. It's a main shift which India has already covered. Now it is for us to say that how we market ourselves and how the organizations start deriving benefits out of it. The hyperscalers of the world, we do say that, yes, we use them. But when you say that we want to scale, we want to put, and we want to utilize those things, I think so along with every shift, there is a usage and a business use case, which is not the only responsibility of the technology department in any organization.
Right.
It is an overall perspective where on the top level, it's just that the world is moving for AI, we also move. No, it's a discipline within. Like the cybersecurity is a discipline in any organization, AI is also a cultural shift. And if you don't transform now, we don't say that we lose the game, but definitely one day just start adopting it. If you see today's senior citizens, with every advent, learn how to start using their mobiles. Every senior citizen has a mobile in their hand. Don't know how to use social media, at least every one of them. So can't we see that cultural shift? This cultural shift will also come. And which we say today, CHRO's prerogatives. Yes, I have seen that in many organizations where there are day-to-day operations where CHRO normally get challenged, like my pay slips or HR operations, onboarding is not happening, or some of the other problems which the employees shift. But definitely with advent of certain what's enablement or, prioritization of such things makes onboarding very easy. Or the employees, at least there should be a desk with employees where we understand and cater those things for them. Retention, which I said yesterday, really certain wow factors for in terms of building, not to have attrition, how to cater to that attrition, and a seamless platform to understand what is the wish fulfillment for an employee today. Because it's a very big shift today. The technology, what was working in the olden age, is not more anymore. Prompt engineering, low code, no code, telegraphics, or the communication channels for this directly when in the organizations, it is from top to bottom as an acceptance. So then it becomes each and every person's use case. So when we give back to business, this rather than building an AI officer from technology side, start building an AI technology officer from the business side who knows the game better because they've thought about it. And they know that through AI automation, I can build this use case, I can bridge the gaps, right? I can be faster, go to the market. That's where, the technology shift will happen or the cultural shift will happen. Coming on your last question that you asked about AI enablement delivery, I think so. We are running through a very big shift, getting the young generation into the, there is a balance which has to maintain between people who are already attuned to working on a process, templates and all that stuff. Those templates, if they are organized and well fed into AI, we definitely get the right output. There is a faster turnaround time. It's just that a collaboration between a good domain holder, a process owner, and a young guy or who knows about how to fit the prompt is the right output. We are still forgetting and we are getting scared that AI is going to take over us. We still all need to understand that we created AI. AI did not create us. So I think so that balance somebody has to keep in mind.
Thank you, Puneet. Lalitha, you must be ready to pipe it on this one.
I think if I just look at from a question perspective, the shift is not just about outcome-based thing. I think, service providers have been talking about it. it is not just about outcome-based, but it is the how of it and the agility and the fastness and the speed of it, right? Because there are 10 paths that takes you to a destination. But what is the fastest? What is the most optimum given your particular situation? I think that is what matters in my opinion.
Right. Thank you there.
Well, can I add one thing to this? Yeah. So, I've been thinking about this question, and I'll probably just broaden this answer beyond the IT services provider. I think, Debashis, you talked about your experience of doing that and saying it. If I broaden it to saying any service provider, and whether it is internal or external, so third party or your captives. And I had, the good fortune, bad fortune, whatever you call it, good karma, bad karma, been on the both sides of the table. So sitting in New York, I have played the client expectation. I played the client role, saying, here is what I expect. And I got teams, not only here, but, Philippines and Europe and etc. I had those. So I also said, asking them to do things which I have built there. So kind of, sometimes I felt like, am I speaking from both sides of my mouth? But maybe occasionally I did. I think the hardest shift that I have seen, the internal shift, is not so much on the culture, talent. Talent, yes, there are a lot of CHR who work, truly agree. I think the culture of the GCC equivalents in India is strong in the sense that we know how to go with that moment, right? We have proven ourselves over and over again. So that would come. It's the client expectation that I find is the hardest one for people to take it. Because the clients are suddenly, because AI is moving so fast, they're suddenly turning around saying, wait a second, 15% of my population, internal, external, combined, is in India. Just why you haven't changed all that? And it's sometimes a very unfair expectation. But those expectations are coming. Now, I'd love to hear if others feel the same way. But sometimes I have put those expectations on my own team and I said, maybe I'm not doing it right by them. The world is moving so fast that I can't wait for them to go through their process and thinking about it for next 1 year and say, okay, now I know what you expect. I'm saying, you got to tell me what I should expect, right?
Yeah. But so let's get back to, I think, a little bit we have left out. But I just sort of pre-answer a bit back to the GCC conversation. And, these were initially developed to retain work that was too strategic to outsource, right? Now AI compresses the cost advantages and threatens the talent density that justifies GCCs in the first place. So 5 years from now, will GCCs be more strategic than ever? Or will AI push enterprises back towards leaner models with these AI-enabled service providers? So Lalit, from ANSR, I'd love to hear your perspective.
So if there was any notion of, versioning of GCCs, we're now getting into an era of possibly GCCs 9.0, that will obviously be, AI influenced in some form and also will benefit from, the late mover advantage. I guess where the market is today, GCCs are making enterprises programmable, by codifying capabilities. And AI will obviously, be, the DNA of enterprises that will be, codified, through the GCCs. So 5 years from now, we would see non-linearization of the evolution of the GCCs. It's already beginning to happen. One of the very distinctive changes that we see in the market is, of course, the emergence of the chief AI officer and the GCCs hosting the chief AI officer at the GCC. Much of it is driven by the predictability of AI talent being available. The fact that GCCs start off with no sort of legacy mindset, while they're not sovereign entities, they are tightly coupled with the enterprise, and therefore, the work that gets done directly influences, the well-being and the growth and transformation agenda, for the enterprises. So we're already seeing the changes that, AI is going to bring in from the perspective of leaner, smarter, cleaner, more intentional, more purposeful GCCs, coming in. And obviously with AI, being the front end center. And I want to take an anecdotal example of one of the recent GCCs in terms of how they are embracing or how they are becoming the operating system for the core enterprise and helping the enterprise, embrace, not only adoption or accelerate adoption, but also embrace the change that, comes with the GCC. So 3 parts to obviously the talent capability infrastructure that's being built at the GCC. The whole notion of, making AI a lot more pervasive across the organization with this notion of AI for all. So how do you bring in, productivity, amplifiers, efficiency, boosters in terms of, the work people do on a day-to-day basis? How do you make their work a lot easier and create a more, conducive work environment across the enterprise? So the notion of AI for all is, a step in the direction of, making AI a lot more, state of mind for the enterprise and, in some ways making the DNA of the organization. The second part is a set of low-code applications that will obviously, be the kind of use cases that will bring about the changes that the enterprise is hoping in terms of, return on the AI investment that they're going to be making. And the third relates to, pro code, which is, bringing in engineering efficiencies through, leveraging AI to, build applications and maintain applications a lot faster. So I guess the late mover advantage that, the GCCs, in the future are going to derive is obviously leaner, smarter, more AI enabled, not just how GCCs would operate the AI. AI would operate the GCCs a lot more efficiently, but also the role that GCCs can play in, making the enterprise a lot more competitive and efficient, and ultimately helping enterprises realize the benefits of AI.
Like, thank you, Lalit. Sorry.
If I look at the statement, the first part says it is initially created for strategic, the work that is very strategic, which we want to retain in-house. And the second part, which says talent density. I think talent density existed even with service providers, right? So talent density is never the only reason why GCCs are created. In fact, if you look at it, in addition to all Lalit said, which is the AI first, 5 years from now, when the infrastructure cost significantly comes down, hopefully, in terms of setting up and running AI, if that is a work which needs very minimal intervention, so why would I use somebody else, just do it ourselves? Because it's a well-oiled engine that's going to happen. And the changes that will be required, because our business environments are agile. So things that it's not going to happen that you create an AI agent and it's just going to run like that for the next 5 years, right? So the agents have to be constantly reconfigured to suit the business realities. So I think that's a work which will continue to be centered in GCCs for the bits that is going to be strategic.
Yeah, well, engines are supposed to affect automation problems. So you want to think about doing things better, faster, more efficiently, and getting better data. So where is this mindset that we don't need as many people anymore? That's where I think things go wrong. Now, where do you see this balance between what service providers bring to the table and GCCs? You've witnessed the whole rise of GCC in the last 5 years. when you see the
And, to the point that Lalit mentioned, GCCs have become very strategic over a period of time. And Lalit talked about 9.0. Probably I was in some way more doing the 1.2 and the 2.0, and then got into the services world in a big way. But I have also seen that, as an organization, you can actually collaborate with the GCCs and help the GCCs to become strategic. I personally feel that the GCCs are here to stay for long. Services industry is also going to stay. And the collaboration will be of a different kind. I mean, for example, if somebody is trying to move very fast and somebody wants to transform, I'm talking about a GCC, I think probably, you can collaborate with the service providers and you can actually they can help you to move fast. So that's the way I look at it. I think the coexistence will continue. And many of the service providers also have their, solutions which are more catered to GCCs. And many of them have platforms which are very unique to kind of help the GCCs to flourish. They can embrace that and they can move fast. And I think it's a good situation for the future where this coexistence is going to continue and it's going to be very more stronger bond in my view.
yeah,
Sure, so welcome. I think the point maybe missing in the question is how fast is the enterprise itself moving? Because I think the GCC is not disconnected from the larger enterprise. So the enterprise is not moving as quickly. The GCC will have to map to what the speed at which the enterprise is moving. That's one side to it. The second piece to this is the lot of the process knowledge. I come back to this point, at least for some of these, more mature GCCs. A lot of the knowledge is sitting here. In order to build effective agentic systems within the enterprise, that knowledge needs to be unlocked. Now, if that knowledge is sitting here, I think the GCC will still continue to be fairly relevant in terms of what happens. Now, where the service providers' opportunity probably coming in is helping build, kind of capture some of that context, be able to build those context graphs, work with the enterprise, the GCC component of it, because a lot of it is here, to continue to play a role in terms of helping them with either the upfront development work, and then, subsequent lifecycle management work that we will come up. I think the thing that we are missing in this picture is the operating cost of an agentic system is not being looked at from an ROI perspective. I think that will become more and more important as we think about that lifecycle management of an agentic system. Because the building it up front is one piece to this. This thing is not a deterministic system. It's a very, very nebulous. So how you build your evals, how are you constantly, validating the fact that the agents and the agentic system that's been built, the orchestration engines, etc., are delivering the same outcomes, from either when the LLMs change or when the agents change, when the context changes, and so on and so forth. So it's potentially going to become a live living system that's going to operate. In that context, not losing that context within the enterprise will become a challenge. So keeping it in-house is probably where the GCC's future direction will start happening, where the GCC will take on the role of ensuring that the agentic systems and the lifecycle management of it, ensuring the auditability, especially in regulated entities, that becomes a very, very critical criteria. The compliance piece of this, where they need to be able to explain to regulators as to what these systems are doing, a lot of that knowledge has to stay in-house. It is not going to go out. And I think to do that, you still need people who are actually overseeing these systems. And, maybe we'll reach the stage maybe 10 years from now where, there are agents that are actually even doing the monitoring, and we trust those things to do it well, right? I don't think we're anywhere close to it. Right. So we are in very early stages. I think it's too early to write off the GCC's role within the larger enterprise in terms of why the opportunities will lie. That's
okay. I wanted to get to the time here. Your second point, which maybe Puneet you'd like to give some views about. Should leaders of service providers and GCCs be more explicit with policymakers and society that this historic employment narrative of linear healthcare growth is breaking, even if this conversation is uncomfortable. Are you having that conversation right now?
Yes. Thank you for that question, Phil. I just want to go back and, adding on to point that the time has come where, the LLMs need the dust and India builds a building on that. And the time is to leverage that building. Now, when I say that slowly what we need to come out of is, rather than having independent silos of the so-called GCCs or what you say, global value centers today, GVCs, we collaborate together with the service providers, which is a software providers or anything, where we should have a consolidation, adopting each other's domain knowledge, which is best practices. It's just not a siloed approach. Enterprising taking an imperative over and above what is coming as a console or what is coming as people coming as one service provider talking, I'm good at this, second talking, I'm good at this. Thinking what good is this and giving back to the enterprises as a whole. And that is what we lack today. Globally, we lack that today. And a software, there should be some policy at maybe a global standard or controls, especially with regard to, basically software providers, when they say what we leverage today and how it's going to give us an outcome-based approach. That should be with the very effect of deployment. And we are much ahead of the pilot stage. We are in the production stage now. So production stage talks about our viability and visibility 3 years down the line. No, 3 months down the line. Technology is facing and churning so fast that 3 years is a very long time. 3 months down the line, what will happen, we don't know. So it is a time where I said that collaboration is one requirement. Secondly, in departments where the technology enablement is there probably there is a need where we have more and more workforce coming in. Why? They are knowing what is the current day's technology challenges. And there are people who is just not that it's about people who know technical stuff can only build AI models. There are people who comes from, that is proven in my organization and my erstwhile organization. We picked up people from a statistic background. We picked up people from Encom background, who built up those models and became an AI agents. So they were the transformers for us. Rather than technology reaching out to them, they came up forward and we built them along with them. And those things are running very successfully in our day-to-day operation.
Right.
Internal departments, yes, outsourcing can be up to a limit. I think so. The time which we adopted a decade back, which is what model build, print and transform, I think so that's the best practice. Get people from the outsourced companies who have delivered these use cases successfully, get them well equipped with your talent to retain the talent, build the skills in-house, retain your IPR, and start moving forward.
Right. So to finish then, it feels to me like who's creating the talent platform that today's best and brightest want to work for? Do they want to work for a service provider? Do they want to go to a agency? Do they want to go to a tech firm? Jay, what do you think? But where do people want to go work for?
I think this is going to be a national imperative, not just for India, but for every country, I believe. The way we work is going to change in the next 5 years. And I echo with everything that said is about the question is not GCC or service provider, is GCC and service provider. However, in terms of the skills part of it, this is going to be a national problem because the skills that are taught in the universities need a reset. Problem solving is one of the key elements of deploying AI at scale, because what we don't know is 12 months back, probably Google was behind. Today, people is talking about Gemini Enterprise, Anthropic, OpenAI was up there. We don't know what's going to come, who's going to build things on top of the dust that you mentioned and how that will have to be used. So I think at a policymaker level, the conversation that we are having is about how do you skill your people to be able to leverage AI, take things forward. I think I like really one of the terms that came out from Davos was it's not human in the loop. with AI. It's human in the lead with AI. And we need to lead that for human by training them, equipping them. And the CHRO piece that Debashis mentioned is so important, so important. People who are doing white coding today are actually competing with machine. Look at the organizational pyramids. Organizational pyramids where those who performed actually moved up and up. But now the competition is between human and the machine. In that competition, I think there'll be counseling pods needed in the companies, because after looking at a code that AI produced in 5 minutes, you got to review it and sign it off, and people are creating workflows. I think that whole psychological part of the training will become so important, because the competition is not moving between the brilliant brain and yourself. It's not between number one and number two. It's machine and you.
Thank you.
It's going to be an incredible journey out there. Can I just add one point to this?
And the final point, Arindam, round that up for everyone.
Okay. I just said this should be politically uncomfortable. This should be social. The amount of growth, economic, income, the movement of people from lower middle class to upper middle class that has happened in the last 15, 20 years, because of the model that GCC had, is changing. And that will have a flattening curve of employment and the flattening curve of income. So this would be a very interesting next 5 to 10 years of how the Indian economy and the society was. Just have a rejoinder to this. I guess as GCCs become national agenda, in the short and midterm, the impact of AI is going to be, GDP neutral. And there are two reasons for it. One, of course, non-traditional segments are opening out to the GCC model, mid-market, private equity, portfolio companies, and it'll obviously create huge employment opportunities in, traditional areas. And then, of course, the adoption of AI or AI enablement of enterprises by leveraging GCC as an operating model. So in as much as it is an uncomfortable conversation, I guess the country and the industry gets a little bit of time, because, there is still a lot of growth ahead in terms of, some of the traditional work that will need to be done to, uplift other segments of enterprises.
Right. Well, this has been a wonderful set of insights. I've learned a huge amount from you, Chris, on it. And I want to thank you all for your time. And hopefully we can have a chat over some coffee, some tea, and some lunch. But thank you very much, everybody.